What does the first 10 minutes of your day reveal about the rest of it? Do you reach for your phone, stare at the ceiling, or jump out of bed as if you've been hired to rescue the morning? A calm beginning can make ordinary responsibilities feel more approachable.
What does the first 10 minutes of your day reveal about the rest of it? Do you reach for your phone, stare at the ceiling, or jump out of bed as if you've been hired to rescue the morning? A calm beginning can make ordinary responsibilities feel more approachable.
That sounds surprisingly familiar. Before we go any further, welcome to our conversation, and welcome to everyone listening. Today we're talking about daily routines, the ordinary habits that quietly shape our energy, time, and mood. The point is awareness, not winning a competition against the clock.
Exactly. We'll compare our routines, question the advice people give about perfect mornings, and pick up useful English along the way. This isn't about building a flawless life. It's about noticing what actually works.
Let's start with waking up. I've noticed that my first decision matters more than I expect. If I immediately check messages, my mind begins reacting to other people before I've decided what matters to me. Even noticing the pattern gives us a chance to choose differently.
I agree, although I don't think checking your phone automatically ruins the day. Sometimes I need to see whether a family member has contacted me. The problem is letting a quick check turn into 20 minutes of scrolling.
That's the phrase, a quick check turns into something. In other words, an intention quietly becomes a habit. My solution is to leave my phone across the room, so I have to get out of bed to silence it. Small obstacles sometimes protect us from choices we make automatically.
That would work, except I'd probably walk across the room, turn off the alarm, and return to bed with great determination. Still, creating a little friction, making an unwanted action less convenient, can be surprisingly effective.
Do you make your bed? It sounds insignificant, but the small act gives me a sense that the day has begun. I'm not claiming it transforms my personality. It simply creates one completed task before breakfast. A little order can support us without demanding perfection from us.
I make it when guests are coming, which may reveal more about my priorities than I'd like. On normal days, I straighten the blanket rather than producing a hotel-quality bed. That's enough order for me, honestly.
I like that distinction. Enough order. Many routines fail because people design them for an imaginary version of themselves. Someone with endless discipline and no unexpected messages, headaches, or children asking where their shoes are. Flexibility keeps a plan useful when real life becomes unpredictable.
Yes, and then one difficult morning makes the whole plan collapse. A routine should bend rather than break. I keep a short version for busy days. Water, a shower, breakfast, and 3 minutes to choose my priorities.
3 minutes sounds manageable. How do you choose those priorities? Do you write a long list, or do you keep it in your head? The best plan is one we can remember on a difficult morning.
I write down 3 important outcomes, not 12 tasks. An outcome is the result I want, such as finishing a report or calling my grandmother. It stops my list from becoming a crowded parking lot of unfinished ideas.
A crowded parking lot is a useful image. When too many tasks compete for space, nothing moves. I usually ask, what would make tonight feel worthwhile? That question helps me separate meaningful work from noise. A short list leaves room for surprises and human limitations.
I ask a similar question, but mine is less poetic. What am I avoiding? Often the task I keep postponing is the one making me anxious. Once I face it, the day feels lighter, even if the task is unpleasant.
That leads naturally to breakfast. I used to skip it because I thought I was saving time. In reality, I became distracted, impatient, and hungry at exactly the moment I needed to concentrate. The body often reports our needs before the mind pays attention.
I've done the same. Now I prepare something simple the night before: oats, fruit, or bread and eggs. Prepare means arrange something in advance, and it saves me from making complicated decisions while my brain is still loading.
My breakfast decision is influenced by the weather. On a cold morning, I want porridge. On a hot morning, fruit and yogurt. That small seasonal change keeps the routine from feeling like a punishment. Enjoyment matters because pleasure makes repetition much easier to sustain.
I respect that, but my breakfast has barely changed in 10 years. I'm loyal to toast. Sometimes I add peanut butter and call it a culinary adventure.
Food aside, morning movement can change our mood. I don't mean an intense workout every day. A brisk walk, a few stretches, or taking the stairs can wake up the body without turning the morning into a military exercise. Movement can be gentle and still give the morning a useful lift.
Absolutely. I walk to a nearby cafe twice a week, even though I could make coffee at home. The walk is my transition, a period between sleeping and working. It gives my mind time to arrive.
Transition is a valuable word because routines often need transitions, not just activities. If we move directly from bed to emails, we skip the mental space that helps us become focused. Good transitions help us arrive mentally, not merely change locations.
And if we move directly from work to family time, we may carry our frustration into the evening. A short transition can be as simple as changing clothes, washing your hands, or taking one quiet breath before entering the house.
Let's talk about commuting. When I travel by bus, I sometimes listen to a podcast, but I don't always want more information. Some mornings I look out of the window and let my thoughts wander. Silence may be active in its own quiet, invisible way.
That's difficult for me. If I'm not listening to something, I feel I'm wasting time. Recently, though, I've realized that empty time isn't necessarily wasted time. The brain may be processing ideas in the background.
Exactly. Processing here means thinking something through gradually, often without noticing it. One of my best ideas arrived while I was washing dishes, which is proof that inspiration doesn't always respect a calendar. Some ideas need space before they become clear enough to explain.
Mine arrive while I'm trying to fall asleep, when writing them down feels impossible. Then, in the morning, I remember only the confidence I had that the idea was brilliant.
Once work begins, do you follow a strict schedule? I used to fill every hour, believing that a full calendar meant I was productive. Planning works best when it includes breathing room between commitments.
I did too, until I discovered that a full calendar can simply mean a crowded mind. I now block out periods for concentrated work and leave gaps between meetings. Those gaps protect me from running behind all day.
Running behind means being late or falling behind schedule. It's a common expression, and it describes the feeling of chasing time rather than using it. I also group similar tasks together, such as calls or administrative work. Grouping tasks protects attention, which is easier to lose than regain.
That's called batching, handling similar activities in one group. It reduces the mental cost of switching. If I answer one email, edit a document, and return to the email, my attention gets chopped into tiny pieces.
I like batching, but I don't use it rigidly. Sometimes an urgent message interrupts my plan, and I have to decide whether it truly matters now or merely looks important because it arrived with a notification. Not every message deserves immediate access to our concentration.
Notifications are experts at pretending to be emergencies. I turn most of them off. If someone needs me immediately, they can call, although I admit I occasionally ignore calls from unknown numbers.
Do you take breaks at fixed times? I found that waiting until I'm exhausted is a poor strategy. A short break before my concentration disappears helps me return with more patience. A break is maintenance, not evidence that the machine has failed.
I set a timer for roughly 50 minutes, then stand up for 5. I don't always obey it, but the reminder is useful. Sometimes I refill my water. Sometimes I stare dramatically at a wall and call it recovery.
That kind of break may sound funny, but looking away from a screen genuinely helps. I also try a breathing exercise. Inhale slowly, exhale longer, and notice whether my shoulders have climbed toward my ears. Physical tension is information, and information can guide a helpful adjustment.
Mine often reach my eyebrows by lunchtime. A physical check-in is useful because stress can hide in the body. You may think you're calm while clenching your jaw and gripping the mouse.
At midday, I prefer a proper lunch away from my desk. Eating while working seems efficient, but I remember neither the meal nor the work. A pause gives the afternoon a clear boundary. A meal can be nourishment, rest, and a boundary at once.
I'm guilty of desk lunches, especially when deadlines are tight. However, I've learned that rushing through food doesn't create much extra time. It creates an afternoon when I'm tired and wondering why I'm tired.
What do you do when your energy drops after lunch? Many people reach for another coffee, but that can become a cycle, a temporary lift followed by an even sharper drop. Energy changes are normal, so our expectation should change with them.
I try walking outside first. Sunlight and movement usually help more than I expect. If I still need coffee, I have it deliberately rather than automatically. The word deliberately means with a clear intention, not by accident.
I sometimes use that low energy period for routine tasks. Creative work is harder when I'm sleepy, but sorting files or replying to simple messages can be manageable. Matching the task to the energy is kinder than fighting reality. Different tasks ask for different kinds of attention and patience.
That's wise, though I'd be careful not to use low energy as an excuse for every difficult task. We need to distinguish genuine tiredness from resistance. Sometimes the work feels hard because it matters, not because we're incapable.
That's a fair disagreement. I can be too forgiving with myself, especially when a project feels uncertain. What helps you move forward when you don't know the next step? A clear first step can turn uncertainty into manageable movement.
I make the next step ridiculously clear. Instead of work on the presentation, I write, open the file and draft the first slide. Starting lowers the psychological barrier, and momentum often follows.
Momentum is movement that becomes easier once it has started. It applies to work and habits. A 10-minute beginning may lead to an hour, but even if it doesn't, you have broken the resistance. Progress often becomes visible only after we have begun.
Exactly. People often wait to feel motivated, but action can come first. Motivation sometimes catches up later, like a friend who is always 5 minutes late but eventually appears.
Let's include social contact in a daily routine. I schedule a few minutes to message a friend, not because friendship should feel like an appointment, but because busy days can make connection disappear. Friendship grows through attention, but attention should not become pressure.
I prefer voice messages. They feel more personal than a short text, and I can send one while walking. Still, I don't expect an immediate reply. A healthy connection leaves room for people to have their own lives.
That's important, especially when online communication creates pressure to respond instantly. A routine should support relationships, not turn them into another performance measure. Healthy habits should add support rather than another standard to fear.
Right. The same applies to exercise and reading. If we turn every healthy habit into a score, we may lose the pleasure that made it valuable. Not every good activity needs to be optimized.
You've mentioned reading. Where does it fit into your day? Reading gives the mind somewhere to go without demanding constant response.
Usually during the evening, but sometimes I read for 10 minutes at lunch. I choose a physical book when I need to slow down. The pages provide a natural stopping point, unlike an online article that keeps offering another link.
My reading routine changes depending on the book. For difficult nonfiction, I read in the morning when my attention is sharp. For novels, I read before bed because stories help me shift out of work mode. A gentle shift can be more sustainable than a sudden escape.
Shift out of means move gradually from one state to another. It's a useful phrase for routines. Shift out of work, shift into rest, or shift out of worry by focusing on something concrete.
Evening routines often reveal our relationship with technology. I try to stop working at a particular time, but I don't always succeed. Sometimes one last email becomes 3, and suddenly the evening has vanished. Boundaries become easier to respect when we make them visible.
I put my laptop away, literally out of sight. That boundary helps. If the screen remains open, part of my brain keeps working. Out of sight doesn't solve everything, but it sends a clear signal.
Do you plan tomorrow at night or in the morning? I used to plan at bedtime, then lie awake thinking about the list. Now I write only what I need to remember and leave detailed planning for morning. Tomorrow feels less threatening when today leaves a clear starting point.
I plan the first task before I finish work. That way I don't spend the evening worrying about where to begin. It's a small handoff between today's self and tomorrow's self.
I love that idea, a handoff. It suggests cooperation with your future self rather than criticism. We often speak to ourselves as if tomorrow's version must repair today's mistakes. Kind language can change the way we respond to a difficult task.
Yes, and that inner voice can be unnecessarily harsh. I'm more productive when I ask, what would make this easier, instead of, why am I always so disorganized? The second question produces shame, not a solution.
Sleep is probably the foundation beneath every routine. What helps you wind down? Rest allows attention to return instead of being forced forward.
I dim the lights, make herbal tea, and avoid serious conversations right before bed. That last rule is practical. It's hard to discuss a complicated family problem when both people are exhausted and one is wearing pajamas.
I agree, although life doesn't always respect bedtime. If something is genuinely important, we can't postpone it forever. The key is recognizing whether a conversation needs action now or simply needs to be acknowledged. Writing can hold a worry temporarily while we attend to sleep.
That's true. I sometimes write down the concern and promise myself to revisit it tomorrow. Writing it down doesn't erase the problem, but it stops my mind from carrying it in circles.
People often compare their routines online and feel inadequate. They see someone exercising at dawn, journaling beautifully, preparing impressive meals, and beginning work with perfect focus. A public image can never show the complete texture of a life.
They don't see the camera outside the frame. Maybe the person also forgot laundry, argued with a neighbor, and ate cereal for dinner. Comparing your ordinary life with someone's edited highlight reel is an unfair competition.
That's a wonderful phrase, highlight reel, a carefully selected collection of the best moments. A realistic routine includes interruptions, mistakes, and days when the only achievement is getting through a difficult morning. Recovery deserves patience because habits return at different speeds.
And getting through a difficult morning can be a real achievement. We shouldn't romanticize exhaustion, but we also shouldn't treat rest as failure. Sometimes the responsible choice is to reduce the plan.
How do you restart after a routine disappears for several days? I find that the first restart feels more difficult than the habit itself. One dependable action may be enough to reconnect us with ourselves.
I never restart everything at once. I choose one anchor habit, something that gives the day structure, such as waking at a regular time or taking a short walk. Once that anchor returns, other habits can gather around it.
Anchor habit is a helpful expression. An anchor holds a boat in place, and an anchor habit gives a day a stable point. Mine is preparing clothes at night because it removes one decision from the morning. A familiar sound can carry meaning without requiring a complicated explanation.
Mine is making coffee while listening to one particular song. It's not scientifically profound, but the song marks the beginning. If I hear it in the afternoon, I suddenly want to solve my whole life.
Music can change the emotional texture of a routine. I use quiet instrumental music for writing and energetic music for cleaning. The right sound doesn't create discipline, but it can make an ordinary task more inviting. Even chores can become lighter when we bring curiosity to them.
I use music to make cleaning look less like cleaning. I dance with the vacuum, which is embarrassing but effective. The house gets tidier and my neighbors receive a free concert through the wall.
Let's discuss weekends. Do you keep the same routine or do you deliberately break it? A weekend needs structure, but it also needs room to surprise us.
I keep a few basics, especially sleep and meals, but I leave space for spontaneity. If every hour is scheduled, a weekend becomes a second work week wearing casual clothes.
That's a strong image. I think routines should create freedom, not eliminate it. When the essential things are handled, we have more mental space to visit someone, explore a place, or simply do nothing. Doing less can sometimes restore the ability to do better later.
Doing nothing is harder than it sounds. At first, I feel guilty, then restless, and finally, if I stay with it, rested. Rest isn't laziness, it's a way of recovering the attention we spend during the day.
Travel and unusual events test our routines. When I'm away from home, I keep one tiny ritual. I write a sentence about the day. It helps me notice where I am instead of rushing through the experience. A small record can preserve details that memory would otherwise smooth away.
I carry a small notebook for that reason. On a recent trip, I wrote only, "The rain changed everyone's plans."
Later, that sentence brought back the whole afternoon, including a terrible umbrella and excellent noodles.
A routine can also reflect culture and family. Some people eat dinner early, others late. Some begin the day quietly, while others talk immediately. There isn't one universal schedule hidden inside a productivity book. Respecting context makes advice more generous and considerably more useful.
Exactly. Advice should be adapted, not obeyed blindly. A routine that works for a student, a parent, and a night shift worker cannot be identical. Context matters more than fashionable rules.
If listeners want to improve their daily routine, where should they begin? I'd suggest observing before changing. For 3 days, notice when energy rises, when distractions appear, and where time disappears. Observation turns vague frustration into a problem we can actually address.
Then change one thing that is small, specific, and connected to a real problem. Don't promise to become a new person on Monday. Decide to put your phone away during the first 10 minutes, or prepare breakfast twice this week.
I'd also recommend asking whether a habit solves the problem you actually have. If you're tired because you sleep too little, buying a more beautiful planner may not help. It might be attractive, but it's not the missing piece. Specific actions are easier to test than enormous promises about change.
That's the difference between a useful tool and a distraction that looks productive. I own several notebooks that were supposed to organize my life. They mostly organize themselves in a drawer.
Before we finish, let's each describe an imperfect routine we could realistically follow tomorrow. Mine begins with leaving the phone away from the bed, drinking water, and choosing one meaningful task before opening messages. A beautiful system cannot replace the sleep, food, or support we need.
Mine begins with getting up when the alarm rings, after one snooze perhaps, then walking outside, eating something, and starting the difficult task before I reward myself with easier work.
That sounds practical, and practical is often more powerful than impressive. A routine is not a test we pass or fail. It's a pattern we adjust as our responsibilities, health, and priorities change. The next attempt can be informed by what the previous attempt taught us.
Yes, the goal isn't to control every minute. It's to make enough thoughtful choices that the day feels like ours. Even a small habit can be a vote for the person we want to become.
So perhaps the question we began with has a deeper answer. The first 10 minutes don't determine the entire day, but they can show us how we're treating our time, our attention, and ourselves. A routine should serve a life, rather than becoming the whole life.
And if those minutes go badly, the day isn't lost. We can begin again at breakfast, after lunch, or on the walk home. A routine is a path, not a prison, and paths remain available after a wrong turn.
Thank you for listening and for spending part of your routine with us. We hope you take one useful expression, one realistic idea, and one little kindness toward your future self. Your days are made of ordinary moments, and ordinary moments deserve care. There is always another ordinary moment in which a new choice is possible.
And remember, you don't need a perfect morning to build a meaningful life. Choose one small action, repeat it when you can, forgive yourself when you can't, and begin again tomorrow. May your routine leave room for ambition, rest, connection, surprise, and the courage to start again whenever the day asks it of you. Every return to what matters can become a quiet act of hope